or may not have seen this recently on social media. It is the new Beetronics Wannabee, which is the most unlikely Beetronics pedal I've ever heard of in my life. And what I mean by that is Beetronics pedals usually sound like this. Because traditionally, Beetronics make wacky, out-of-control, over-the-top fuzz pedals, which take some taming. And now we have this Wannabee, which is a dual overdrive. This side is a Bluesbreaker, and this side is a Klon, which is so unusual, they even played it as an April Fool's joke. But it does exist, and it sounds like this. Well, that's the Bluesbreaker side. The Klon side sounds like this. And although I think that sounds great and it is a joy to play, it is not even a small fraction of what this pedal can do. Because the Wannabee has 3 switches here, which changes what the pedal does and how it interacts with itself. But don't worry, it's not one of those Beetronics pedals that has a million functions when you hold down this button and that switch and stand on your head. It's pretty simple. It just has lots of functionality that is, I think, fairly straightforward. So before I give you some more sound samples with this Telecaster, I'll let you know what to expect from this video. I'm going to give you as many sound samples with as many different guitars as I can without making this video a million minutes long. I'm going to play it through a series of amps. I'm also going to put it up against an original 90s made in England Bluesbreaker from Marshall, of course, and a KTR Klon, which is, you know, the nearest thing I can get to one of those big boxes that costs as much as, well, part of my house. On my pedal board at the moment, I've got the Walrus Audio Canvas tuner. I've got the Wannabee, that's going into the HX1 from line 6, giving us a bit of dynamic room reverb. And the amp at the moment is the Royalist from Tone King, and you're hearing that through some vintage V30 IRs through the Captor X from 2 Notes. So we've got Circuit 0, which is the Bluesbreaker on this side, and we've got Circuit 1, which is the Klon on this side. Then that one engages the Bluesbreaker, that one engages the Klon, and both together, you've got both together. As for the knobs, we've got gain at the top, which Beetronics call honey. We've got tone in the middle, which Beetronics call taste. And then we've got volume at the bottom, which Beetronics call volume. Then we have 2 flavor switches. This one affects the Klon side. All the way to the left gives no clean blend, so it's just the full signal of the Klon circuit. In the middle, which is where it's at now, setting number 2, that's a medium clean blend. And then push it over to there, gives us number 3, which is a full clean blend. The second flavor knob is for Circuit 0, the Bluesbreaker. All the way to the left is a mid-boost. Then in the middle is flat, nothing being boosted. And then the right is the low-end boost. And this switch is the routing of the circuits. So at the moment it's in the middle, which means both drives are going in parallel. Of course, if you're only using one, you're only getting one, and the other side does nothing. And if you go to the left, you've got Circuit 1 going into Circuit 0. So Klon into Bluesbreaker, all the way to the right, and you've got Bluesbreaker into Klon. And as far as I know, that's it. There are no secret menus or secret sounds. If you find any, let us know in the comments section and give yourself a good old pat on the back. Right, I'm going to kick off the top 5 tones with this Telly, that amp, and this Wannabee. So that's probably some sounds that you're expecting from a Bluesbreaker and a Klon. We put them both together in parallel. This setting is going to blow your mind. Right, I've got the Bluesbreaker going into the Klon with this switch here, and the Bluesbreaker set pretty high. Klon, yeah, okay, it can do more, but it's still pretty high. Have a listen to this. Oh, let's do clean first, in fact. I know it's not a fuzz, but that is one of the most beautiful, nasty, clear overdrive fuzzes that I've ever heard. And I know I do get rather, excited about fuzz. Excited is a simple word, but it sounds amazing. And then clean. I've never heard a Klon and Bluesbreaker sound like that. So definitely there's a Klon in there. Definitely there's a Bluesbreaker in there. But there's also Beetronics in it. That little bit of Beetronics flavor. Beetronics. Let's hear what it sounds like with everything facing straight up. Pretty standard setting for an overdrive pedal. Let's explain the switches. Right. We've got on the Klon side, no clean boost. We've got both circuits in parallel, and then we've got the low end boost on the Bluesbreaker side. So I'll do Bluesbreaker first, then Klon, then both together. It's just such a great combination. I love this guitar and I love this amp. And when you drive that amp, you get this lovely natural overdrive. And that Wannabee is kicking in both settings. I can't decide if I prefer the Bluesbreaker side on that or the Klon side, or both. Both together is something special. But purely alone, I can't decide. If you have a preference, let me know in the comments, because I think both are cracking. It is baritone time, and I'm going to play it kind of like a bass. And we're going to go for medium gain on both. Is that about the same? Yeah. And then I've got full clean blend on the Klon side and mid boost on the Bluesbreaker side. That's lovely. Again, there's that honkiness to it. I love it. Okay, let's try it through a cleaner amp, because I'm guessing that you're expecting some more sort of bluesy sound. So this amp is beautiful, but I know that I'm driving it enough to get some drive from the amp. I want to hear what the pedal sounds like through something clean, maybe something Fenderish. This is the Thinline 30 from Stanford. It looks huge, and it is huge. It's hollow bodied, it's P90s, and it's going through the Fender Deluxe reverb with the reverb from the Fender this time. But let's kick in the Wannabee. I've got the Bluesbreaker with the mid boost first, then I'll have the Klon with no clean boost, and then I'll put both together. But I'm going to do something a bit different and play along with a backing track from Play Better backing tracks. I ended up playing the whole track, so I'll edit that into something that's, digestible for a YouTube video that isn't about the backing track. That is amazing fun. I love my Fender Deluxe reverb. I love this guitar. The Wannabee, it's nice having those two different overdrives, which they are different to each other, but they're still in the same sort of family. And then together, it's an extra kind of, it's more than chocolate and strawberry together. When you add them together, you get something that isn't chocolate plus strawberry. You get super chocolate and like something new. I don't know what I'm talking about there, but I'm trying to say that it's bigger than the sum of its parts when you put them together. Speaking of putting together, I want to explore the Klon into Bluesbreaker and Bluesbreaker into Kron, and then parallel as well. So let's do that. I feel like I'm going to change guitar again to something else. I'm in parallel mode at the moment, and when I go Klon into Bluesbreaker or Bluesbreaker into Klon, it's going to get a bit quieter, so I'm going to have to boost the level of the first pedal with the volume. So let's go for it. Right, so it fuzzes up nicely because you're really pushing that second pedal with the first. And this is where that Beetronics-ness comes into it, which is kind of hard. Well, it sounds like a B. It's easy to explain. It sounds like a B, and it reminds me of the Fat B overdrive from Beetronics. But I kind of want to get that now, but no. Anyway, we'll stick with the Wannabee. Yeah, it's kind of weird to have to push the volume when you switch the switching, which means you couldn't really do it, live, but then it's a switch anyway. So you wouldn't be switching it live. You'd have to choose your mode before then. Anyway, with dual overdrive pedals, you can often decide which one you're going in first to push the second. So you can switch between the pedals with a little two-way switch. As far as I know, this one is the first one that I can think of that allows you to put them in parallel. So you're playing both at the same time, which does make them louder, of course. So I thought this was my normal volume, but that's actually the louder volume, thinking about it. So I've been misleading myself, and maybe you, this entire video. But yeah, the parallel mode, you can hear both of them coming through, and when you switch from one into the other, then you've got something special. Again, that Beetronics-ness. Okay, I think it's time to compare the Klon side of the Wannabee, this side, to the actual KTR Klon that I have. Let's hear what that difference is. I've had a little play already, and I've already made a decision. Let's see if we hear the same thing. Okay, now, what I heard here was that the KTR Klon was a lot more open and toppy, and the Wannabee Klon side is a lot more bottom-end, warm, round, and more overdrive than the KTR. Does that make sense? Like, the Klon is an overdrive, but the Wannabee sounds more like a regular drive, whereas the KTR sounds like a Klon. What I'm trying to say is that Beetronics have obviously done something to the Klon circuit to make it more or less Klon, more Beetronics. I like both, but it's not the same. Let's try the Bluesbreaker in the Wannabee versus the Bluesbreaker in the Bluesbreaker. Once again, I've already had a little play around, and I've got something that I think is similar. So I said similar, not the same. There is still a difference, and I'm not expecting a one-to-one copy. Also, both of these pedals are buffered, as in not true bypass, so they are affecting each other, or one's affecting the other one. But it's close. I think that's closer to the Bluesbreaker than it is to the Klon. I like both. The Bluesbreaker seems more open, but the Bluesbreaker has really scratchy pots and is from the 90s, and I famously bought it and almost got rid of it because I thought it didn't do anything because I was into distortion back then and didn't know what I was talking about. But anyway, there is the Bluesbreaker flavor in the Wannabee. It gets close, man, and I guess the Bluesbreaker can stay in the studio and the Wannabee can come out on the road. So, in my opinion, the Wannabee definitely contains the essence of the circuits that inspired it. And if you've never tried a Beetronics pedal before because you think they're too wacky, too insane, you're probably right. But try the Wannabee and then, crank some stuff up and get some fuzziness out of it and see if that leads you into some more Beetronics, and you'll finally end up at the Swarm, which is totally nuts. I think the Wannabee looks beautiful, but I wasn't sure about the clarity of the labeling of the knobs and switches. I am now fine with that. But when I first saw it, I thought, I don't know what that thing does. And I actually got to see the pedal before it got released. I went to visit Felipe and the rest of the Bees at the Beetronics Hive in California, and I got to see and I think give some input into the pedal before it got released. So that was dead exciting, and I have a video coming up of behind the scenes at Beetronics. In fact, it might already be on the channel, and if it is, I'll put a card up there. If there's no card there, it means I haven't released the behind the scenes at Beetronics yet. But that was an absolute blast, and I got right into the Hive and got to try all the stuff and see what makes Beetronics tick. So if that isn't there yet, subscribe to the channel and come back when it is. If it is there, feel free to go and click it now. To sum this up, when I first played this in California, I was surprised when Felipe told me he'd done a Klon and a Bluesbreaker. It seems so far away from what I know as Beetronics, but in playing it then and playing it now, it still has that Beetronics vibe, both in looks and in tone. However, as we've discovered in this video, it is fairly loyal to the original sounds of the circuits that are in there, but it's still different enough to not have both pedals on the board and just have this. If you are a fan of Beetronics pedals, you're going to like the upper gain areas of this, and maybe you'll dive into the lower gain areas. And if you're a fan of Klons and Bluesbreakers or drives in general, this is a very functional pedal, being parallel and one into the other. So you can definitely get a lot of different tones from one box for that price. If you do fancy a Wannabee of your own, there are links in the video description. As for me, if you subscribe to the channel, you're going to see a lot more of this pedal because not only is it a great bunch of drives, it's fun as well. And that's the reason I play guitar. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, click that button up there and that will subscribe you. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.